Thanks so much for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Ephraim Graham. The president is still weighing America's options as the crisis in Iraq continues to spread. Militants have captured yet another city, and with the weapons and money stolen in their terror run, the group is now a billion-dollar terrorist army. In their march to take Baghdad, the northern Iraqi town of Tal Afar is the latest to be captured by the militants of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, known as ISIS. The militants are boasting they've executed nearly 2,000 Iraqi government soldiers, and they've posted some gruesome pictures, though their authenticity cannot be verified. Iraq's government is calling for new recruits to join the fight against the militants, and a crowd of volunteers gathered to join the fight on Sunday. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department has announced plans to partially evacuate the American embassy in Baghdad, and the Pentagon is sending in about 100 troops, including a platoon of Marines, to protect the personnel who stay behind. But President Obama is still weighing his options when it comes to American involvement in the fight.
My first thing to recommend to the president is get your intelligence group back on track, making sure that we have the intel that we need for our whatever options we have that are going to be accurate.
3 U.S. warships, including an aircraft carrier, are deployed to the Persian Gulf. But Democrats are still pushing for the Iraqi government to find a diplomatic solution before any military action. Republicans are warning time is not on our side or the side of the Iraqi people. With the weapons and money stolen in their terror run, ISIS is now reportedly a billion-dollar terrorist army.
What's so heartbreaking is that we had this place in a good spot. They were playing politics rather than killing each other. The decision to withdraw U.S. forces created a vacuum. Syria is a launching pad, and it's all come together. We need air power immediately to stop the advance toward Baghdad.
Lost in this battle is what this unrest means for Iraq's Christians.
We're hearing enormous pressure, and believers are saying they feel that they're just minutes away from conflict. They hear it outside. They know it's not going to take long until it turns on them as Christians.
Tom Doyle is the author of Dreams and Visions: Is Jesus Awakening the Muslim World? He has this message for America's Christian community.
To the believers that watch CBN 700 Club and are so passionate about praying, just anytime you see something on television, if you would, remember that it's not just Mosul, it's just not ancient Nineveh. You have brothers and sisters there in Christ that are living in some of the most dangerous conditions in the world. Pray for them.
Kenyan authorities say Islamic militants from Somalia are responsible for a massacre at a Kenyan resort city on the coast. At least 48 people died when dozens of men carrying automatic weapons attacked 2 hotels and a police station and sprayed the streets with gunfire. At one hotel, the gunmen forced the women to watch as they pulled the men aside and executed them. Those who were unable to answer questions about Islam or speak the Somali language were killed. Al-Shabaab, an Islamic terrorist group in Somalia, has carried out several attacks in neighboring Kenya. The U.S. will assist Nigeria in its fight against the radical Islamic group Boko Haram. U.S. lawmakers attended a classified briefing in the Nigerian capital on Sunday. Texas Republican Steve Stockman said, pending approval from the U.S. and Nigerian governments, he did make that announcement. He did not specify what action the U.S. will take. Last week, Representative Chris Smith said U.S. forces are training a battalion of Nigerian troops to fight the terrorist group. Boko Haram seeks to establish an Islamic state in northern Nigeria, and it drew international condemnation for kidnapping 300 schoolgirls back in April. A massive manhunt for 3 Israeli teenagers entered its 4th day. Israel says terrorists abducted them as they waited for a ride in the West Bank. One of the teens is also an American citizen. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell has the story.
The teens were waiting at this bus stop to hitchhike home from boarding school on Thursday night. Catching a tramp, as it's called, is common practice here in Gush Etzion, where public transport is sparse.
I was actually at this bus stop right here just a couple hours before that happened, which is really kind of scary to think about, but also it makes me realize that it could have been me, it could have been any one of my friends.
The kidnapping has gripped the nation. It's believed that terrorists snatched the teenage boys in order to obtain the release of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails. In the last year and a half alone, The IDF says it stopped more than 60 kidnapping attempts. There are some 34,000 residents of Gush Etzion in biblical Judea, an area the Palestinians want for a future state. Authorities believe the teens are being held in the Palestinian West Bank city of Hebron, where security forces are concentrating their search. More than 150 Palestinians have been arrested in the last few days, most of them Hamas members. Hamas denied its involvement, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the blame is clear.
The kidnapping was carried out by Hamas members. Hamas denials do not change this fact.
In a phone call, Netanyahu told Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas he expected the PA to help return the youths and apprehend the kidnappers. Earlier, he said the kidnap is a clear result of the recent Fatah-Hamas unity government.
And the PA cannot absolve itself of its responsibility. You'll remember that Israel warned the international community about the dangers of endorsing the Fatah-Hamas Unity Pact. I believe that the dangers of that pact should now be abundantly clear to all.
Washington has condemned the kidnapping. Gush Etzion Councilwoman Ruthie Lieberman said congressmen can do more.
We want them to speak to the White House, to have the White House speak to Abbas. The Palestinian Authority should not be able to just sit with his hands tied.
25,000 people gathered at the Western Wall to pray Sunday night for the safe return of the boys. As the security forces continue their search, Israelis are hoping and praying for a good outcome. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Senate Democrats are aggressively pushing President Obama's judicial nominees through the chamber. This comes as the party faces November elections that could see Senate control go to the Republicans, making it harder for the president to win approval for judges during his final 2 years in office. Last November, Democrats made it harder for Republicans to use filibuster to derail nominations. Before the filibuster was weakened, the Senate filled 36 judgeships in the first 11 months of 2013. Since then, the Senate has confirmed 54 of the president's judicial choices. A Missouri high school has been ordered to restrict its faculty's religious activities at school. The American Humanist Association filed a complaint in federal court on behalf of 3 plaintiffs. The complaint against the Fayette School District said the school acted unconstitutionally by announcing a weekly prayer meeting over the intercom and allowing a Christian group to meet before school, but not others. Now, faculty is not allowed to participate in prayer or religious activity at student-led meetings. They're also not allowed to place any religious items where students might easily see them. A man is suing a church in Oklahoma for publishing his baptism announcement. The former Muslim from Syria converted to Christianity. He says the church put his life in danger by publishing the notice of his baptism online. When he traveled back to Syria, the notice came to the attention of radical Muslims. The man says he was attacked, kidnapped, and tortured for days before being able to escape. Good news for a Christian evangelist arrested in Scotland after being accused of homophobic hate speech. Police arrested street preacher Tony Miano while he was on a week missions trip in January. Now, months later, they've decided to drop all charges.
For a loaf of bread or
Former Los Angeles Deputy Sheriff Tony Miano, seen preaching here on a street in London, took early retirement to become a full-time evangelist. Like Scottish authorities, London police also arrested him on similar charges, saying he was arrested on suspicion of offenses under the Public Order Act, accused of making homophobic comments.
They asked me what I was preaching about and if I had talked about homosexuality. I said that I did. They continued their investigation. And at about 4:20 p.m., I was arrested for what they told me was homophobic hate speech.
Okay, I'm arresting you for Section 5 public order. Okay, this is because people have been offended by what you said.
Fortunately, Tony's attorney secured his release with no charge. An investigator came into Tony's cell the same day in London with good news.
What he said amazed me, and I knew it was the hand of God. He said that the inspector has decided to release you with no further action.
In Dundee, Scotland, it took several months after his arrest under hate crime legislation, but police dropped all charges as well. Miano told authorities in Scotland they could see his preaching on video to prove he had done nothing wrong, and his message was one of hope in Jesus Christ. Miano says after watching the video, prosecutors found nothing in his preaching that constituted hate speech.
Miano is considering whether to pursue legal action in Scotland's civil courts against the police. Pope Francis is criticizing Europe for its low birth rates and increasing numbers of young people who neither work or study. Speaking from Rome Sunday, he said Europe is tired and it often discards its elderly by shunning them aside and calling them no longer useful, and its young by failing to provide work. Pope Francis's predecessors often said Western Europe had forgotten its Christian roots and had become obsessed with consumerism. Francis said, quote, "We must help Europe get younger and rediscover its roots." Coming up, meet a man with a heart for the fatherless and see how you can be a part of caring for orphans all around the world.
Pat Boone here with a word about bank safety. Do you think your money is safe in the bank? Don't bank on it. A generation ago, bank accounts felt secure and they paid interest. This encouraged the virtue of thrift and saving. But today, bank accounts pay virtually nothing, and they've shifted from low risk to high risk. For example, did you know your money deposited in most U.S. banks could be subject to limited withdrawal and even confiscation? Oh yes, and that's just the first of 19 risks explained in a new white paper entitled "Don't Bank on It." You still think your bank deposits are safe? You better get this vital new "Don't Bank on It" white paper now. Call the number on the screen or visit SwissAmerica.com, the gold standard. Learn how simple it is to become your own banker today.
Millions of Americans with an ostomy live their lives to the fullest every day. And over the last 10 years, thousands have chosen Liberator Medical as their caring and reliable resource for ostomy supplies. Liberator Medical is a nationally accredited Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance provider, so we can handle all your Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance paperwork and billing. And Liberator Medical has been chosen as a preferred supplier by all the leading ostomy manufacturers, including Coloplast, Hollister, Convatec, and Generics. We supply all these leading ostomy brands so you can always get the ostomy supplies and accessories you want and trust. And all of our ostomy care specialists are product certified by the manufacturers. Shipping is free and discreetly delivered right to your door. Unhappy with your present ostomy supplier? Call Liberator Medical and ask about our free ostomy sampling program. We also offer catheters and urological supplies.
Call 1-800-513-3076. That's 1-800-513-3076.
If you have children, you probably celebrated Father's Day Sunday, but for millions of children around the world, it is just another day without a dad, and in many cases, also a day without a mom. Take a look.
As a father of 3 adopted children, author Rick Morton is passionate about the biblical mandate of caring for the fatherless. A longtime international advocate for orphans, he works to help Christians understand the complexities of transnational adoptions. In his book, No Orphans, the sequel to the popular book Orphanology, Rick shares how the church can work with other nations to engage in orphan care and adoption.
And joining us now is Rick Morton to talk more about this book. So first of all, why did you decide to adopt?
Through prayer, through searching God's Word, through understanding God's heart for the orphan and how that heart is ultimately glorifying of God and represents the gospel.
Speaking of heart, you've got a passion for the fatherless. What fuels that passion?
Understanding the glory of God and understanding the need. 153 million orphans in the world, understanding that there are more vulnerable children that aren't counted in that number, street children, social orphans that have moms and dads, but moms and dads that have rejected them.
You say that not everyone should adopt, though. Why not?
I think a lot of families just aren't prepared. Anytime you're dealing with adoption, you're dealing with brokenness, and it's difficult. there are lots and lots of ways that people can care for orphans. Really only about 0.5% of the orphans in the world could be even cared for by transnational adoption. So there are lots and lots of other ways that we can pour into and care for. We can wrap around adoptive families. We can wrap around foster families, pray for them, provide meals, provide counseling, all kinds of other things, even orphan prevention, sponsoring children.
Now, in your book, you address head-on some of the criticism that the evangelical church has had or faced regarding orphan carers in that movement. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think there's some from the outside that would want to, would want to talk about that evangelicals maybe have inflated orphan numbers. Maybe that we've added to the crisis, maybe even added to the corruption that exists. I really don't see it that way at all. I think that we've tried very, very carefully to try to do the things that we do ethically. Evangelicals have led out in the effort to see reforms happen. Evangelicals right now are leading legislation called CHIF, Children and Families First, that we desperately need people to call their congressman about, that would call for U.S. aid funding to be tied to countries protecting children better. Yes. Through the way that their child protection policies are used, and would streamline the way that international adoption is done so that it's more transparent and more protective of children.
Beautiful. Before we go, what are you currently sensing in terms of God's moving in on the church's behalf of orphans?
Well, I think what we know is God's out in front of us. And, I just came back from Africa. We're seeing that the church is moving, and it's not just moving in warehousing kids in orphanages, but taking children into families, taking children in foster care, taking children in adoption. And it's happening in Africa and in Asia, and it's happening in Eastern Europe. And the organized efforts of the church through movements like Christian Alliance for Orphans and World Without Orphans and those kinds of things, they're catching up. We're catching up to the movement of the Holy Spirit.
Praise God. Rick's book, once again, is called No Orphans. It's available wherever books are sold. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Up next, a new addition to the operating room. See how Baxter the robot is changing the workplace.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
And welcome back to CBN News Today. A new wave of robotic technology is making science fiction an everyday reality. In addition to revolutionizing U.S. society, many are hoping that robotics will also give a much-needed boost to the American economy. David Brody has this report from Purdue University in Indiana.
We've all seen the sci-fi movies where robots are ready to take over the world. But that's fiction. Here at Purdue University, they're working on real-life scenarios, like Baxter, the human-like robot. Engineering and technology students are working to put Baxter in the OR to help during surgery.
We have here is a robot that will act as a surgical assistant to the main surgeon. It's not meant to replace the surgical assistant, but it's meant to complement.
The idea here is to train Baxter for menial surgical tasks so the human hands can be doing more important duties. Baxter could be performing in real-life surgery settings in a couple of years.
Baxter is a pretty incredible robot. It can virtually do any command, like this, retractor. You've got your retractor.
Baxter isn't just headed to the medical field. Eyes are also on manufacturing and how Baxter can help in the workplace. What is really groundbreaking is that this technology isn't powered by computer programming. It learns by demonstration.
We have cameras here that are observing the scene. We also have some sensorized clothing. So this is actually a glove that does motion capture. And it can detect what Josh is doing. Is he grabbing something? Is he moving his hand? Is he letting go?
So watch this. The human teaches Baxter what to do. So for example, the red block goes by, as does the purple block. The human then picks up the yellow block and puts it in the basket. Baxter observes and repeats the action.
It's going to say, okay, I saw Josh pick up a yellow block at this point, and he put it over in that box. He didn't get the purple, he didn't get the red. It only went after the yellow.
And Baxter uses facial expressions, just like a human. If something isn't right on the assembly line, he can let his human operator know about it.
If it has nothing to do, it looks bored, just like a human does. And if something goes wrong, it looks concerned, just like a human does. And if things are working just fine, it's kind of a happy expression.
This is the brainchild of the company Rethink Robotics. They're trying to move robotics to the next level, not replacing human workers, but helping them. The thinking behind this is to help American companies compete with overseas manufacturing, where workers do the job for less money. Robotics can help the American worker bring in a higher wage and be more efficient.
That's where we think robots that can understand humans, understand what they need and how to help, and can learn from them and split the tasks, can make them much more productive.
Baxter isn't the only robot lurking around Purdue's campus. This little guy doesn't have a name, but the fire department loves this robot's work. It's all part of a pilot program with the South Korean government. If successful, robots like this could work with departments by going into dangerous places, taking photos with its thermal imaging camera, and fighting fires. Dale DeYoung is behind the remote control.
We operated the robot into an area that had already collapsed, and we sent the robot in there because we obviously couldn't go in. And we were able to put out a significant amount of that fire just by driving the robot in there and putting a lot of water onto that area.
This firefighting robot provides a valuable lesson.
I think people are now looking at robots more not as some science project or not some idea out of a movie. They're starting to use and think about robots that can be used in everyday life.
The Obama administration sees the value of robotic research. The president got a taste of the technology on a recent trip to Japan.
Hey, good job.
The National Robotics Initiative will provide millions of dollars for additional research.
As futuristic and, let's face it, as cool as some of this stuff is, as much as we are planning for America's future, this partnership is about new, cutting-edge ideas to create new jobs, spark new breakthroughs, reinvigorate American manufacturing today, right now.
So what does the future hold in this area? The possibilities are endless.
Imagine then robots you can pour into a disaster scene and have it then reassemble itself into, say, a jack or a whole robot that can actually remove rubble and pull someone out.
Baxter would surely be impressed. David Brody, CBN News, at Purdue University in Lafayette, Indiana.
Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? Hi, I'm George Foreman. People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
InventHelp has been helping inventors for more than 30 years and has sales offices nationwide. InventHelp can provide patent referrals and submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. If you have an idea and want to try to patent it and submit it to companies, you should call InventHelp today for free information.
Listen, I can't guarantee your company will be interested in your idea, but I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
For your free inventors information, call 1-800-461-9290. That's 1-800-461-9290.
If you had a choice between going bald and a full head of hair, which would you choose? Advances in medical science have resulted in the world's first and only permanent solution to hair loss.
Yes!
You wash it, you cut it. It's your own real, naturally growing hair. When it comes to hair restoration, no one in the world has more experience than Bosley. The results look completely natural and are affordable on nearly any budget. But the entire process can't be explained in 60 brief seconds. So to find out more about this clinically proven and permanent solution to hair loss, call now to receive your free no-obligation information kit. It'll answer all of your questions about hair loss and hair restoration. Plus, we'll also send you this $250 gift certificate just for calling. Every day you wait, you're losing more hair. So don't put it off any longer. You owe it to yourself to find out the facts. Choose hair. Choose Bosley.
Call 800-868-9957. That's 800-868-9957.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids. Do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Water is the essence of life, but in developing nations, it isn't always easy to get. People can spend hours every day finding and carrying water to their homes. Thanks to CBN's Operation Blessing, the task is a little bit easier. In many places, women and children carry household water an average of 3.5 miles a day. Often it is balanced on their heads or in their arms. Now, Operation Blessing is helping lighten the load by giving out H2O water backpacks. The packs makes trips less strenuous by distributing the weight of the water on their shoulders and their backs. Way to go. Well, that is going to do it now for CBN News Today. Remember, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. And you can also tell us what you think about the stories at CBN News on Facebook and Twitter. See you next time.